Let me tell you a secret right now. The Stoicism you see all over the internet, the quotes you have saved on your phone, it is a complete fundamental lie. You have been sold a cheap, castrated version of the greatest philosophy in human history, and you do not even realize it. You have been taught that Stoicism is just a practical life hack, a psychological trick to help you not give a fuck and suppress your anxiety. And because of this massive lie, I know exactly what happens to you when a real crisis hits, when you lose your job, when a relationship shatters, when your bank account drains you, sit alone in the dark, bathed in the blue neon light of your screen. You read a quote from Marcus Aurelius, you grit your teeth, and you command yourself to feel nothing. You pull the plastic mask of the unbothered Stoic over your face, but beneath that mask, you are terrified. Your heart is pounding against your ribs, your chest is tight with panic, and your mind is screaming. You pretend to be a rock, but inside you feel like a pathetic, weak imposter. You are drowning in anxiety, and you hate yourself because your philosophy isn't working. But listen to my voice in the static and let me lift that crushing guilt off your shoulders. The reason you are failing to stay calm is not because you are weak. It is not because you lack discipline. It is because reducing the ancient Stoa to a cheap self-help routine is a crime against reality. The internet sold you the roof of a magnificent temple, but they deliberately hid the foundation. Do you understand why your mask cracks under pressure? We must leave the realm of motivational quotes and descend into the cold, clinical architecture of your own neurobiology. We must put your brain on the surgical table. What the internet calls Stoicism today is actually a highly destructive, primitive psychological mechanism known as emotional suppression. When you experience a sudden loss, your amygdala, the primal threat detection center in your brain, instantly identifies a massive danger to your survival. Within milliseconds, it hijacks your nervous system and floods your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. Your body prepares for a physical war, but instead of processing this chemical reality, the modern bro-stoic attempts to use sheer willpower to crush the emotion. You try to build a mental dam to hold back a raging ocean. Biologically, this is like trying to stop a speeding freight train by standing on the tracks and closing your eyes. The kinetic energy does not simply disappear. The unexpressed cortisol remains trapped in your nervous system. Your brain becomes physically exhausted from the monumental effort of appearing calm. This forced suppression creates a severe nervous system overload, guaranteeing that you will eventually either explode in a nervous breakdown or collapse into total grey apathy. True, authentic Stoicism does not work by suppressing the chemical reaction to stress. It works through a profound, permanent cognitive restructuring. It changes the very mathematical equation of how you perceive reality. To find the antidote, we must travel back, past the modern influences, past the Roman emperors, back to the absolute foundation of the authentic Stoa in ancient Greece. We must look at the brilliant, uncompromising minds of the early Stoics like Chrysippus and Epictetus. They understood something that the modern world has entirely erased. Authentic Stoicism is not a collection of life hacks. It is a strict, indivisible trinity. Physics, logic, and ethics. Mass culture stole the ethics, the instructions on how to behave calmly, and threw away the physics, the explanation of how the universe actually operates. Trying to practice Stoic ethics without Stoic physics is like gripping the steering wheel of a car that has no engine. You can turn the wheel all you want, but you are not going anywhere. The physics of the early Stoics is breathtakingly majestic. They taught that the world is not a chaotic, random collection of dead matter. The universe is a single, living, highly rational organism, and this massive organism is permeated by an invisible, fiery breath of divine code they called the Logos. The Logos is the absolute, unbending law of the cosmos. It is the mathematical algorithm that writes the code of reality. Because the universe is governed by the Logos, the Stoics demanded the acceptance of one terrifying, liberating concept: total determinism. In the authentic Stoic worldview, there is absolutely no such thing as an accident. There is no random chance. Fate is not an external bully waiting in a dark alley to punch you in the face. Fate is the flawless, internal, necessary logic of unfolding events. Everything that happens is a precisely calculated gear turning inside a colossal, universal clockwork. If you do not understand this mechanical perfection, the physics, then your attempt at calmness, the ethics will always be a fragile, theatrical illusion. Look at the sheer arrogance of your suffering. Look at why the anxiety is eating you alive. You suffer because deep in the darkest, most infantile corners of your psyche, you still secretly believe that this crisis should not have happened. You are standing in the middle of a torrential downpour, screaming at the clouds, demanding to know why you are getting wet. You are fighting the pure mathematics of the universe. You desperately want to possess the legendary, unshakable serenity of an ancient sage, but you are trying to achieve it while holding on to the mindset of a modern, entitled child. You still believe the world owes you a specific outcome. You believe that if you are a good person, the gears of the universe should stop turning to accommodate your personal plans. As long as you reject the physics of inevitability, your calm will be nothing more than a cheap coat of paint over a crumbling wall. It is time for rebirth. It is time to drop the pathetic mask of emotional suppression and embrace the ultimate weapon of the authentic Stoa, synchronization with the Logos. You must stop using philosophy as a cheap painkiller to numb your wounds. From this exact moment, when the next blow of fate strikes your life, you do not grit your teeth. You do not force yourself to smile. You step back. You look at the loss, the betrayal, or the ruin with the cold, calculating eyes of a sovereign observer, and you state an objective fact. This mathematically could not have happened any other way. You realize that the event was a necessary, unavoidable sequence in the grand code. You stop burning your precious neurological fuel on the agonizing, useless thought of what if. What if I had said something different? What if I had invested elsewhere? There are no what ifs in a deterministic universe. The gear turned exactly as it was designed to turn. When you truly internalize this, you do not have to suppress your panic. The panic simply fails to generate. You cannot be angry at the gravity that makes the glass shatter when it hits the floor. You cannot be anxious about a sun that has already set. Listen to the immortal, uncompromising law of fate whispered by the ancients. Vater volentem ducunt, nolentem trahant. The fates lead the willing, and they drag the unwilling. You have spent your entire life being dragged across the concrete, resisting the pull of the chain, tearing your own skin in a futile rebellion against reality. Today you stand up, you look at the chain, and you begin to walk willingly. If you are ready to drop the plastic mask of the modern Stoic, if you are ready to stop fighting the rain and finally synchronize your mind with the brutal, flawless mathematics of the universe, I want you to go down into the neon darkness of the comments right now and leave one word: Logos. Do not write it as a comment. Carve it into the digital stone as a personal vow. A declaration that you are no longer a victim of chance, but a sovereign piece of the grand mechanism, Logos. Today, you stopped fighting the storm. You saw the code behind the chaos. You accepted the total determinism of the Logos, and in doing so, you acquired the only true, unbreakable serenity that exists in this world. But listen closely to the static on the tape, because right here, inside this beautiful acceptance, lies a new, fatal trap. Millions of weak men discover this concept of determinism and immediately weaponize it to excuse their own pathetic cowardice. They mask their fear of conflict behind the word fate. They watch people cross their boundaries, they watch their lives deteriorate, and they sit in passive, lazy silence, claiming they're simply accepting the will of the universe. How do you tell the difference between the sovereign acceptance of the ancient Stoic and the pathetic, paralyzing fear of a man too cowardly to fight for his own territory? That is our next room.